Hey guys, in this podcast we talk about views of different third parties. Please know that we are not trying to misinterpret or misrepresent these views, and if we do so, we apologize in advance. Thanks. Additionally, we talk about different health topics in this podcast. As we are not medical health experts, we would ask for you to consult with your doctor first before using any of the information that is stated in this podcast. Thanks.
The 50-Minute Rundown. Welcome everyone, this is the 50-Minute Rundown. I'm Nick Shaw.
And I'm Stephen Banks.
Today our podcast is entitled Slavits, Sleep and Habits Combined. We're going to be talking about habits, how to form them, how to keep them, and particularly sleep, the habit that we all have a problem with. And our guest today is Josh Shaw. Josh, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Josh. I'm honored to be on this show in front of all you millions of fans out there.
Yes.
And
Millions and growing, Josh.
daily.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I represent the more younger side of this show. I'm a sophomore in high school. I'm 15 years old.
Yeah, so Josh is my brother. He has some wisdom to share about habits. So Josh, I know that you've been kind of dedicated to all these new habits up and trying to stick to them. Which habits have you stuck to and why?
Alright, well, I first read Dr. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That book I found to be profoundly life-changing. There are 7 habits, and 3 of them the first 3 have to do with your private victory, habits that how you improve yourself. The next 3 are habits how you improve your public victory, your public self, and then the 7th habit is how you renew yourself via exercise every day. You exercise yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, and then social, emotionally. I've been able to stick to these habits as best as I could. I'd fall off every now and then I'd kind of just get back into it. And I would really remain extremely diligent to this book.
What are some examples of specific habits that you've kept?
I've been able to keep the physical exercise habit. You're supposed to get in 3 physical exercises every day: endurance, flexibility, and strength. It's been tough for me, but I always find the way to get endurance in there, whether it's running, swimming, or just walking for 40 minutes because I'm too lazy to run. But and then flexibility, I just do some stretches. Strength, I do about 30 push-ups, so that Nick would always tell him I'm doing them wrong, but he's just jealous.
I guess for me, probably the main habits I have are just getting things done in order of priority. If that can even be in habit. So what I mean by that is I always have my computer screen with my checklist ready to go, and I'm constantly reordering and prioritizing different levels of tasks that need to be done, and then feeling so gratified that I get stuff done and getting the check mark and going down the line. It's almost like I get up, first thing I think is, where's my to-do list? And so Josh, you talked a little bit about your exercise program. You said there's also emotional or other different realms of the 7 habits that you have also investigated.
There's spiritual, mental, and social emotional. So for spiritual, I'll try meditating, and that's what I really want to touch down on today, is how you repeatedly do something every day. And spiritual, then I'll try writing in a prayer book. I'll be skipping every night. Then mental exercise. But after that, that always make me read huge lit books, so I'm in my honors lit class, and I'm not sure why I haven't dropped out by now. I would be reading Grapes of Wrath, try and challenge myself every day, but I eventually stop and start listening to music, and it's so challenging, and after a while, doing the repeated thing every day.
So it kind of gets dry after a while, but what do you do to stick to it? What has been your secret to stick to certain routines that you've made?
What I do is I'll literally just pull up the 7 Habits book again, and I'll reread I'll reread it till I feel confident about doing it again, and then I'll just remind myself of all the principles of the book I read, and then my commitments. Because the way I think of it is you gain willpower through exercise. That's why physical exercise. And that's what I put first at the beginning of my day, and then how I will myself to doing that.
Yeah, so you're saying you're saying you like get up, you physically exercise in the beginning. That kind of puts you in the mood for getting other things done, to muster the willpower to get other things done later on.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, like, I would take stuff out of the book, and I've actually written in my iPad, because I have, like, this iPad that I have to take to school every day, and because my school have iPads, long story, but, yeah, like, so I'm always looking at my, like, while everyone's, like, working on math or something, I'm always, like, paging through my personal mission statement that I've written to myself.
And not getting a good grades as a result.
My grades are somewhat decent.
So, yeah. Okay, I get it. So you're kind of, like, refreshing yourself with your mission statement and remembering why you even made a commitment to stick with these habits in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Does Covey recommend making this mission statement, or how detailed, or how many sentences is it?
It's literally...
It's
like,
140 characters.
Tweet worthy.
Some people add extra and it never works out for them. It's habit 2, which is begin with the ends in mind. So you're supposed to focus on the end that you want for yourself. And then you're supposed to ask yourself, how am I going to get there? And what habits and what, like, steps and methods I'm going to take to actually approach that end. And you're supposed to place your values, subordinate your impulses to your values. That's when you, like, truly embrace interpersonal leadership. When you actually document these values and reread it every day, you'll find yourself editing them and, like, making them more adjust to you. But it actually has, like, a really profound impact every time you reread it and then edit it and then go back and reread it. By editing it, I mean...
Yeah, if you want to, like, say you want to keep yourself physically fit and you edit it later to get specific goals of becoming physically fit.
I've heard things that relate to choosing appropriate goals or calibrating them. For example, self-talk can be really powerful. They say if you listen to a recording 3 to 4 times a day for 3 weeks, then, like, it'll just become ingrained in yourself. But you want to make sure you're very specific about it. So someone could have the goal of losing weight. An example given was this lady who said she was going to lose so many pounds by a certain date, and she wasn't able to do that by dieting or exercise. So what ended up happening was she got really sick and went to the hospital and, like, lost the weight.
Really?
Her body, like, let her get to her commitment, but since she wasn't specific about how she would get there, it was actually bad for her.
Yeah, so make a mission statement, but also detail a plan of how you're going to get to that end goal.
Yeah, you want to just consider the ramifications, like, what does this really mean? What are the alternate ways I could get to this point?
You guys are talking about is, like, this reinforcing, where you, like, remind yourself, oh, okay, why am I doing this? And the science a little bit about that. There's a theory called Hebb's Law or Hebb's Theory. And basically it kind of talks about how the neurons are organized in your brain. And so when you do something for the first time, you get a certain pathway developed. And so let's say you, like, get out of bed and you hit a 30-minute run in the morning. That habit of getting out of bed and then hitting the run in the morning is first formed through this neural pathway. But each time you do it afterwards, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger until you almost develop an impulse to say, oh, I must be running now because I just got out of bed. And that's actually how we form habits. And the problem is that most people kind of wane after the first week or two because that's the critical time where you're actually creating and sustaining this neural pathway. And so if you don't keep the neural pathway sustained, then the habit just, 2 weeks after New Year's, you're done. You've already eaten chocolate.
You've gone to the rec center for the first 2 weeks of the quarter, then you're never seen again.
Right, exactly, yes. The first couple months, if you can keep the habit, then you'll probably be able to keep it much, much longer. We just have this tendency to think, oh my God, is life going to be like this forever? This is miserable. I can't do this every day. But you get slowly used to it, and suddenly it's very doable for you.
The good news about that, I guess, is that if you have a bad habit you want to get rid of, it can weaken just as long as you stop doing it, whatever that neural association is.
It works in reverse too. So if you have, like, this habit of always biting your nails, for example.
That's the habit I have.
It's so ingrained because you've probably been doing this for years, and your neural pathway for that is like a highway by now. It's so.
I'm gonna need some ice for this burn.
So the problem is that you've ingrained in yourself to just think like this, and subconsciously you'll start biting your nails without even realizing it. But each time you tell yourself, no, don't do that, you're slowly weakening that pathway till it eventually disappears and you stop biting your nails. Little by little type of thing. You won't see the results right away.
What Anthony Robbins recommends is that if you find yourself falling into an old pattern, just shock yourself out of it. Like, do something out of the ordinary, and then you can try and get back to what habit you actually want.
Yeah.
Does Covey have any recommendations for how to handle bad habits? Or
He says you need a burning desire, a yes. And this is the part that, believe it or not, I've actually stayed away from just to avoid guilt. Now that I think about it, he has you take the time to stand apart from the situation and analyze what you're doing, what the bad habit is. I bite my nails and I can't even believe I'm still doing it. But I actually never thought about it. Never thought to myself, this is a bad habit, I shouldn't do this. When you take the time to widen your gap between stimulus and response, because between stimulus, what happens, and then your response, you can widen the gap, take time, stand apart from the situation, and look at it. You have to analyze your values. And do I value biting my nails? And then you think to yourself, no, it's full of germs. Is there anything positive I'm getting out of it? No. So then why do it? I'm not going to do it from henceforth, and I'm going to really imprint the first 2 weeks. I'm no guru in this area of habits. I
think it's important when you're trying to get rid of a bad habit to have a replacement habit of some sort that's directly supplemental. So I don't know what would be a good replacement for chewing nails. I don't know if, having chewing gum, or
I've heard they put wax on your nails for these people. They put I think just something really nasty.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say too is, Josh, you mentioned how sometimes you don't even realize that you have a bad habit, so you can't correct a bad habit if you don't even realize you have a bad habit. Some people have said that actually when they get married, they realize they have huge bag of bad habits that they've never realized before that the other person points out.
Bad guys don't think they're bad guys, and mainly when there's something majorly wrong with somebody, they don't realize it or really pay too much attention to it. Break out of that. One really good habit to do would be to listen to other people. When you do that, you have to empathize, and you really have to seek first to understand them. And what most people do is they impulsively blow people off, or
they'll defend themselves right away, right?
It takes a lot of willpower to start exercising.
Yeah.
Until you get them. But when you really have the maturity to actually stop and really listen to them and really empathize with what they're saying, you might realize something totally new and totally different from what you've insisted from before.
A lot of the bad habits that other people, someone might tell us that we have a bad habit, like you were saying, but we might not consider it to be that bad, and that's why we still do it. I think it's how much value you place on certain goals in life, which directly goes back to that mission statement you were talking about. If you don't think having a high blood pressure is necessarily that bad of a thing, you probably won't make a habit to repair it or to do something about it. Whereas a health freak would probably be high blood pressure. I mean higher blood pressure from having high blood pressure. But yet the point is that you it's how much you value certain things, and you'll make changes based upon that value.
Exactly. It's all about the value placed in it. When you just stand apart from your life, your situation, really ask yourself. Great thing to do is to write down these things, which is what I do. So you reread it, and it clarifies your commitment, clarifies what your values are. So it's not just a mix and jumble of thoughts. It's when you really write things down and take the time to clarify these things, then you really can form constructed thoughts and constructed values and constructed habits. So all these habits work hand in hand. They're all interconnected with each other. If you improve in one area, you'll improve in another. This sounds crazy, but if you improve in your mental exercise, really challenging yourself with what I have, ACT, schoolwork, reading intelligent books, great classics, then you'll feel that accomplishment. Then you'll want to do another productive thing, maybe exercise. And it all works, it's all interconnected.
Yeah, I think, Josh, one thing that you touched on a lot was the fact that solving certain habits within yourself can actually lead to more confidence in public settings. So in other words, if you're able to get a lot of things done, getting on a set schedule that maybe you just start with laundry, which leads to getting your homework and studying for exams done, which leads to getting you physically fit at the gym. You do all these things, and sooner or later you now have the confidence to approach public settings that you didn't really have the confidence to approach to earlier, because you've reaffirmed yourself that you can really do things and get things done.
Have to start with like the basic three within yourself: your leadership, your spiritual, your mental, and then your physical. I find a lot of like social turmoil between people and then like the real turmoil within like these people are like within themselves. But clarify your values and commitments, stand apart from your life situation, and then start making time for yourself, spending time on yourself. Once you start doing that, you'll go back to public with this new inner integrity. Once you have this integrity, interaction with others is completely different. It's almost something you have to try out to really see.
I think the classic one is in high school. Like, a lot of girls like just really mean to each other, but they may be mean not because of the person actually, they don't like the other person. It's actually an insecurity within themselves.
They don't know how to respond. They're just reactive.
Yeah.
That's how
and so if you're able to build self-integrity within yourself, all of a sudden you don't have to worry about necessarily like your reputation, where you are on the social food chain.
So the greatest thing to do is just stick to your routine that you start. But once you do that, like, you cannot break from it, because as relaxing and as tempting as it is, the second you do, that's when your life starts to fall apart from the inside out.
Isn't there an element of flexibility that's helpful, though? Like, it seems like if there's something in your life that's changing, or you do want to go on that 2-week vacation, like, I don't want to be putting in place habits that I'm so dedicated to that they don't allow me to enjoy this moment of my life, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, you definitely have to enjoy that vacation and do what you can. And that's the mentality I had too. But what I learned is you also, no matter where you are, what you're doing, definitely enjoy. You also have to find a way to exercise your endurance, your flexibility, and your strength. And you also have to find a way to somehow mentally challenge yourself in the day. See, that's the lax attitude I took. And then when I got back to school, I was like, I would be staring at a chalkboard for 2 hours. Like, I couldn't even think straight. Like, and then as soon as I got back into these habits, like, it didn't happen overnight, but I eventually became myself again. And then I just got my confidence back, fixed whatever like damage I've done to my life, and then like I was able to get back to this routine. But I had to go through the whole 2-day hump period where it's hard to like get back into the habits.
Yeah, maybe for me, if I was taking a 2-week break and there were habits that I put in place that I really wanted to keep, I can make an agreement with myself saying once I'm back, I'm totally back to it, and give myself like no excuses. That 2-week break might show me why I appreciate those habits in the first place and why they're that more important. So it could actually strengthen my will for those habits in some ways.
Yeah, I one thing I want to comment on that, not to be a devil's advocate, but I think a lot of people, let's take diet for example, will say like, well, if I only have like 3 days, for 3 days I'll only do this, and then I'll get back to this habit. And classically, we know that they don't end up getting back to the habit. How do you reaffirm yourself after those 2 weeks that yes, this is going to happen for sure?
Maybe it's not necessarily the best strategy, but I found I do want to go and do fun things for 2 weeks, so that's the mindset that I have that make it sort of work.
Yeah, not change gears, but I think one habit that we all face is sleep, and trying to get to bed on time, whatever that really means. I think for me, I've struggled with that, but Josh, I know you've really tried to make a goal and stick to it.
Well, I was up till 1 last night. Because I'm down in Cincinnati, and I was just calling people, girls were calling me, and like, I knew I should have gotten to bed, and this goes on with me every night. I always know I need to get to bed right now, and then YouTube or something, and I'll always watch the next video or stalk the next person on Facebook. And the thing is I won't get to bed till like some nights like 2 in the morning. Telling myself, it's alright, what's 5 more minutes gonna do? What's 10 more minutes? And then I'll just keep going on that little laptop I have of mine up in my room, which I should have taken down like a week ago or so. And then I'll look at the time, it's like 3:30. And then I just gotta tell myself, that's it, I'm done. And it's so I know you're both like laughing because you both do the same thing. And so
that's that. Well, no, I think that's a good point, Josh. I mean, I think a lot of us have this mentality of only 5 more minutes. What could it possibly lead to? And sooner or later, you're up till 2 in the morning. You wake up the next morning or
and my first thought when I wake up is why? Why did I do that to myself last night? And I'd only have like 6 hours of sleep, but maybe 5 or 4, and I'm supposed to get 8. Or I'll go through the day with that mentality,
that slow, sluggish mentality that you can't get anything done, and that you should have gotten that full 8 hours in so that you could jumpstart things on the next day.
All over 2 hours of YouTube. And that's what we have to tell ourselves, that like we don't realize it, but sleep is extremely important. When this whole show I've just been a hypocrite so far. But
yeah, well, I think we all are hypocrites in some way. We don't stick to these, every single day, but it's more of the more you do it, the better results you get.
I think especially on co-op, you go to work for 8 hours a day, and then you want to come home and have fun. And for me, that would be YouTube. Or I feel like when I come home, that is my time to do what I want to do. And that ends up really costing me the next day, where I only get 6 hours of sleep or so.
I'm yawning right now.
And so, like this semester, I've been trying to get a more relegated sleep pattern. The hard part is when I don't have something the next morning that I want to get up and do, or that I have to do, I can easily stay up until 2 a.m. and then it's thrown off. Because really, to get the sleep pattern, or to get your internal clock set, you need to be waking up and going to sleep about the same time every day for at least 6 of the 7 days out of the week. Like, you can break it once and then get back into it. But if you're not consistent about those times, it's going to be a lot harder on your body.
But when you break a habit once, then it gets harder and harder. See, that's my problem. The weekends, like Friday night, it's a 3 a.m. party. Yeah. and I'll even have like a sleepover with a friend, and that's just an all-nighter. I'll go back to school and I'll think to myself, all right, my bedtime's 10. It is 11:30. And I don't know how it ended up this way. I'm rushing to get to bed, and then there's always like 20 things I need to do to get ready for school tomorrow. And then I wake up feeling like crap. Why did I do this to myself? And then I do eventually get into it, like 10 o'clock every night. And then the Friday night hits, and then I throw out my circadian rhythm again. So my circadian rhythm is really just... It's
not rhythmy?
It's not rhythmy. If I
non-existent?
Unstable is how I put it.
Have you developed any routines going to sleep? Because I've heard people talk about this, and it sounds really helpful. For me, there's a number of tasks that I need to do to ensure the best sleep. So, for example, put up the blinds, brush my teeth, put in my retainers, just turn off my computer. Things that if I was up watching YouTube, I might neglect and just be so tired and just go to bed. Whereas if I had done these things, my sleep would be that much better.
And that's one thing you like really have to do. Get absolutely everything done before you turn on YouTube.
Right, because then you'll end up staying up later because you have to get this thing done, but you're distracted watching YouTube, which prolongs you till about 12, and then you finally get it done, and you end up being up till 2. One thing I wanted to mention earlier was about the circadian rhythm, just from a science angle. If you completely alter your circadian rhythm, you're going to bed at 10, next day 2, next day 12, and you're just going back and forth, it actually it hurts your brain, it damages your brain, and if you do it long enough, it can lead
to
it can lead to permanent damage. Now, it's not severe, it's minor, but the point is that your circadian rhythm is there for a reason. And back in the caveman days, we just used to go to bed at when the sun set and got up when the sun rose, which obviously differs during the winter and the summer months. But if you can follow that, you'll actually find it's easier to go to sleep and wake up, and you'll sleep better. That's one of the best recommendations physicians give to patients that have insomnia.
Sleep is a habit just as much as exercise and nutrition and stress management. And if we compromise it, then we just throw off our circadian rhythm and screw our lives up. I wake up at 6:18 every morning. So then I have to organize around that.
Yeah, and not to get back to what Steve was saying about the rituals, a lot of people that also suffer from insomnia tend to do these different rituals that allow their brain to think, okay, I'm going to go to bed now. So it's, in other words, it's a habit to go to sleep. So some people brush their teeth while walking back and forth 5 times in their hallway, or they'll change the sheet to the pillowcase to their bed, or they'll pull down the blinds, and it kind of sounds slightly neurotic or OCD, but it's these specific rituals that you only do before you go to bed that tells your body, oh, these are usually the things I do before I go to bed, so I'm going to go to bed now.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful to have habits that you do if you can't fall asleep. Like if I get into bed and don't fall asleep within 15 minutes, I think it's important for me to either read, try to meditate, or get up and do something productive, or just something that relaxes me or gets me doing something helpful. I don't know if you guys have strategies there.
Right. So if I can't fall asleep, there's actually this strategy that was recommended to me where you literally bore yourself to sleep. So I'm not talking about reading Jane Austen, but what I'm saying is reading or counting to a really high number. So if you just start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and by 363, I am just out. I'm just completely I'm asleep, and I just stay asleep usually for that long time. I've also found, for me, this is a neurotic habit I have, the sleep habits I have, but I actually wear earphones over when I go to bed. They're earphones that people at the airport would wear, and I've just found that I'm not afraid to be woken up by somebody else's noise in the dorm. So I know for sure that I'm not going to hear any sharp noises that would jerk me awake, and so I'm not afraid of waking up and being disoriented. I can just go straight to sleep.
2 things with that. Aren't you afraid, or do you not use alarms? How does that interface with having some sort of ear protection?
It's the weirdest thing. Your body subconsciously just takes them off, and I never have a memory of taking them off, but every time I wake up in the morning, they are off, and they're on the bed, and they're by my right hand. And I have no memory of ever taking them off, but I know it happens within an hour or two because I've been woken up 2 hours later because of an ambulance going by, and they'll be off. And I have no memory of taking those off at all, but I must have.
I was going to say that's the other thing with wearing some sort of big headgear is that it would be so annoying you couldn't turn your head. So maybe it's just your natural reaction, okay, I actually want to sleep now, and this thing's disrupting.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But the minute you said headphones, I'm like, what?
Some people do earplugs instead because it's a lot more. It's much easier. But you have the alarm issue because they actually stay in your ears the whole time, and 2, if you do it for a prolonged time, you can have buildup of earwax as well. So that's the reason why I tend to avoid those. One thing on the side of sleep that I just thought was really interesting is polyphasic sleep. I'm not a doctor. I would not recommend this, by the way. But I've experimented with this. And what poly meaning many, phasic meaning a phase or sleep that you'd be conducting yourself under, is basically this stage where you sleep more than once a day, but you sleep for a shorter period of time. So you can sleep biphasically, so 2 times a day, triphasically 3 times a day, and so on. The whole idea with this is that it reduces in total sleep hours you have to do. So you might need to sleep 8 hours a day, which is recommended, but through biphasic sleep, the promise is you may only need to sleep 6 hours a day, and so you gain 2 hours throughout the whole day. I did a 4.5 hours at night, and then an hour and a half during the afternoon. But I would set my alarm for 2 hours just in case I needed to sleep a little bit extra time.
Yeah, but don't doctors like recommend you get like sleep all at once? Like you want a whole period of.
Yeah, and I think there's many studies on this, but my gut feeling is that sleeping 7.5 to 8 hours a day is the best for you. There was some literature saying that people actually used to wake up in the middle of the night, and they would kind of mix, we'll just say, at like 3 in the morning, and then they would go back to sleep again. So they'd be up actually during the middle of the night, and then they'd go back to bed. And so the idea is maybe that nap during the middle of the day would actually allow you to power sleep or fall into a deeper sleep faster, so that you skip the initial stages of like slowly falling asleep and then getting into that deep sleep, and the deep sleep being the thing that matters a lot. But a lot of scientists now realize that those pre stages of falling into deep sleep are actually very important as well for your brain recovery. And so my opinion is that you can't cheat sleep. You need all phases of sleep to be mentally healthy.
Yeah. And another thing that you can't slack in is physical exercise, because this works hand in hand with sleep. And the minute you neglect physical exercise, you're like tossing and turning with insomnia. I just think to myself, why didn't I get sleep last night? And then I'd worry about the insomnia, like I need to get to bed now, and then 3:30, I eventually do doze off, but I wake up and it was just a lose all around. Like I didn't get the exercise, I didn't get the sleep. And
one thing I just want to give a quick example was I had to take an MCAT test, which is like a really important test before medical school. The night before, or the day before, I ran like 11 to 12 miles, and because of that, I was actually able to sleep before this really important test. I didn't sleep soundly, but the point is I do believe that physical exercise is correlated with well sleep.
Question on polyphasic. So when you're getting 4.5 a night and then 2 hours during the day, are you getting about the same amount of REM sleep?
Yeah, that's the idea. You want to go into REM sleep, but the major thing I found was that I was actually waking up. I'd be so exhausted that I would like instantly fall asleep and wake up within 25 minutes.
Wow.
And I wouldn't. It's almost like you're being knocked out and then just becoming awake again. And that basically you would sleep. I would go to bed at 2 a.m. and then I'd go to bed at 1:30 a.m. and get up at 6 a.m. and then I would go to bed around like 2 p.m. and then get up at 4 p.m. around there. But when I went to bed at night, when 1:30 hit, I would fall asleep and then I'd just instantly be woken up after 25 minutes. And that actually has led to a theory of a more power sleep schedule where you sleep only for 30 minutes at a time, and you consistently do this every 2.5 hours, so that you're only sleeping a total of 3 hours a day, which means you gain 5 hours a day, that's a tremendous amount of time.
Right.
That is.
Yeah. Just you can't go anywhere for 2 hour periods.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's very restrictive. If you miss after 2.5 hours, if you miss your power nap, you're just destroyed for like the next 24 hours.
And isn't there a 2-week set period where you have to make it and you're going to feel awful and exhausted? And then once you get over the hump. Yeah,
there's this transition period where if you're going to do this power sleeping, which I don't recommend, I want to just reinforce that, you feel just terrible transitioning to this timely nap situation. The major problem I had with it, even if I was fine with it, was just making it work in real life. There's no way you can show up to your job and say, "Oh, can I take a half-hour nap?" There was one guy I knew who he negotiated with his boss, and he said, I will work 2 more hours a day total for you if you let me take these periodic naps while I'm working. And I can't get any phone calls, no emails, nothing. I'm going to be completely out during this time, no matter what is happening. Maybe if the building is burning down, we can make an exception. So the point is that he negotiated with his boss, and he did this for like months, but he gained these 5 hours, and 2 of them he spent working extra, and he got a couple more dollars, and I guess it worked for him. But
there's some advice to make some extra bucks, guys.
Yeah. And at the same time, I want to say there's a highly controversial drug called Adderall that is also used in higher education institutions. And that is found, a lot of students have found that they can focus on an essay and they'll be able to just stare at this essay and get it done, and it's just so exciting to write about more about Jane Austen or whatever the topic is. And that has actually shown to decrease the need of sleep for these students. But at the same time, there's also been a lot of speculation that this drug does a lot of mental damage afterwards, later on. You can't perceive the effects initially, but later on you have a lot of drastic health side effects.
Wow. At night, isn't it true that there's this drug called DMT that your brain releases, and that's why you can't remember dreams at night? It's sort of, I don't know, I'm not the right person to describe it.
But one thing I wanted to talk about on that topic was lucid dreaming. That's a really big deal in the dreaming community. What lucid dreaming refers to is a ability to control your dreams, which may sound completely crazy, but
if I could remember them.
Well, yeah, that's the idea. You'd have to have the dream, control the dream, and then remember that you control the dream when you wake up. But there's a lot of speculation that dreams are just a bunch of garbage in your brain trying to make sense of all the garbage that it's processing. One thing lucid dreaming does is you remind yourself that you're dreaming by doing something unnatural. So, for example, throughout the day when you're awake, you may blow into your hand every hour. And when you blow into your hand, you feel the wind against your hand. But in a dream, your body doesn't process all the laws of physics, and so when you blow into your hand, you don't feel anything. So then you realize, I'm actually dreaming. And so
Inception.
but yeah, exactly. And so you can all of a sudden say, well, I want this to occur in my dream, and your body can make it happen. I'm not really much of a lucid dreamer. My friends have done it, but it has just piqued my interest because it's a different area of sleep that I never thought was possible.
What's the advantage of controlling your dream, though? I don't know.
I don't think there's really a distinct advantage. I think it's just more of a fun thing to do, say you've pulled off before, and
yeah, like you could have kind of just do that anyways, like to other people.
Yeah, right. You could just be like, yeah, it's such a great dream. This is what happened.
Or if you just like flying, I'm in a dream. Okay, I'm going to fly now.
Yeah, right. One other thing I want to touch on, Steve, that you mentioned was that you don't remember some of the dreams that you dream. You feel like you had a dream, but it's on the tip of your tongue, but you just don't remember what you dreamed of. That has to deal with like the neural connections that you have referring to the dream memory that you've created. There's actually a new study that came out. There's a drug that I forgot the name, but this drug is used to disturb neural connections to your memories. So it can make you forget. They've done this with mice, but it'll make you forget the memories that you've had if you take the drug and think of those memories while taking the drug. So, wow. For example, let's say you take the drug and you're remembering your first date, which I would highly not recommend. Yeah, you would forget that you've actually had this first date and what happened on the first date. Now, obviously, this is a very controversial drug. There is no FDA approval on this at all. But people with a lot of bad memories have emailed these researchers saying, I would do anything to get rid of these painful memories. Can I take this drug? And it's been a really serious issue, and a lot of people have wondered, are there any military uses for this, with imprisoning somebody, and does it have any other side effects that can be very detrimental to the mental health? After all, you're eliminating memories from people.
It's like that Jim Carrey movie, The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which had some very serious repercussions. The end theme is that there's better ways of working through memories than erasing them.
There's a lot of controversial research when it comes to sleep and dreaming. Another one that actually won a Nobel Prize was on Tetris, and it proved that dreams are used to help you get better at the previous day's activities. And there's many studies that show this now, but people who play Tetris regularly always dream of Tetris when they fall asleep. It's like a known common phenomena.
Yeah, like I dream of Call of Duty sometimes. Keep going.
And what they did is they had all these people dream of Tetris. They woke them up in the middle of the night and they asked you, what are you dreaming of? And it proved that the body, they then played Tetris the next day after getting a full night's rest, and they could do significantly better. They've done this with anything, snowboarding video games, Tetris, even different writing exercises, memory recall, and it proves that the body uses sleep to improve your ability to conduct a mental task, and including physical tasks as well, like physical coordination. So that's why it's always really important to get a good night's rest before the game, and that's why the home field advantage is so important, because you're sleeping in your own bed.
Yeah, the two big benefits of sleep: you get to practice certain things, and also doesn't it improve your memory? It like restructures and reorganizes the way you store your memories.
Right. Earlier we talked about Hebb's theorem, which reinforces the same neural pathways. What sleep does is reinforce those pathways while you're asleep, and so it makes them stronger. So when you do the activity again, you can...
I have to throw this fact out there. When you wake up, within like the first 5 seconds, you forget, I think, 50% of your dream, and then within the first 30 seconds after that, or whatever, 25 seconds after that, you forget like another 30%, and then within the 5 minutes after that, you forget another 10%. So you forget, these facts probably aren't right. It's something like this. This is really like brief. But you forget about 80 or 90% of your dream after 5 minutes, unless you think about it as soon as you wake up. And
right.
Like reinforce everything. And this all falls under the category of Quadrant 2. And what Quadrant 2 is back to the whole 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book. It's something you really have to visualize. It's 4 boxes, 4 squares, and basically it's categorized as urgent, and then not urgent, and important, and not important. And so Quadrant 1 is like urgent and important, stuff that acts on you because it's urgent and it's important, something you have to do. Sudden, like a paper is due in 15 minutes, or your
phone call from the boss.
Exactly. And then Quadrant 2 are the stuff that is important, but it's not urgent. You don't have to go exercising right now. You have all day to do it. Or you don't have to get sleep right now. You get later.
Stay up right now and wake up really late in the morning or something like
after
that.
The internet. And then Quadrant 3 and Quadrant 4 is where we're not supposed to spend any time at all, because none of those are important. Whether they're urgent or not urgent, they're both not important. So anyways, the point I want to make was all these habits fall in this Quadrant 2, which is not important, not urgent, but really important. And so this sleep, it's not urgent, acting on you right away. Exercising, mental exercise, spiritual exercise, they're not demanding right at the moment. You have all day to do them. And so then most people just neglect this Quadrant 2 because they just focus on Quadrant 1, even Quadrant 4, and they just doze off with. When we actually take the time and spend it in Quadrant 2, it makes significant, huge, beneficial impacts.
Yeah, I think one thing that he talks about is you have Quadrant 3 and Quadrant 4s, which are watching TV or playing video games or some phone calls about different advertisements. And if you get rid of those altogether and spend that time doing Quadrant 2s, you actually eliminate or reduce the amount of Quadrant 1s you have. You don't have emergencies anymore because you've already taken care of many other things before that. And so you're relaxed and you efficiently get a lot of things done. And and at the same time, you're not wasting time. You're just progressing forward step by step.
And it's great because when you're avoiding quadrant 1s, which is urgent important stuff, by spending time in quadrant 2. Like if you take the time to exercise every day, soon high blood pressure won't act on you when you're 40 and become a quadrant 1 or a heart issue. Just from taking the time to get the right sleep and right exercise, which was all quadrant 2 from the very beginning all along, and has such a huge beneficial impact. And the main part where we go from now is trying to engage in quadrant 2 and spending our time in places that is not urgent but extremely important. And when you do that, that sets you aside from literally every other person, people you talk to, interact with every day.
Right. We'll wrap things up. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your time. If you have any questions, you have our YouTube and Facebook page to contact us from, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.